Welcome to Timo's Dinky and Diecast. Today I'm going to be restoring a Shado 2 mobile, a Dinky 353. This one I got from Kijiji. It's in very poor condition, and at this point when I got it I was thinking maybe I should have bought one a little bit better, but this came very cheap, and it's missing a couple of parts and the wheels don't look the greatest. But I'm hoping that they'll clean up a little bit better than that. Certainly the axles are all bent apart and the body itself is also bent and cracked in places. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to take it apart first. The spring is working, that's very important. All of those little bits are there and I don't have to replace them. So we'll take it apart now. And these are the screws that are holding the base to the top of the body. And these are not ordinary screws. These are specially shaped triangular screws that form a thread when they're being driven in. So they're driven in by a power driver of some sort. And I'm going to have to replace those at the end of this because it's very hard to redrive those in. So it looks pretty rough and dirty inside, which doesn't matter much. That top thing that flips over, it gets stuck because the sides are bent in so much that you have to kind of push it past. So I'm going to have to straighten those out. There we've got the little wavy washer and the flat washer and the screw, and everything is in good shape on the launcher. And now I'm going to have to drill out the rivets that are holding this launch platform in place. The latch for holding the launch platform is broken, so I'm going to have to repair that. Just the bottom part is holding. This part is working just fine. I'll clean it up and find a new spring for it, and we'll take off all of these axles. So I used my method with the file that's been ground smooth on one end until they're small enough that I can get these axles off. You can see they're bent up pretty good. So they're going into Evapor Rust, and this is a very nice rust remover, and I'm going to put all those rusty parts in and then at least get the rust off of them before we straighten them out and polish them. I'll put this in because there are steel parts that are rusty there, and put the washers in and the screws, and that's the screw for the launcher. So then I leave those overnight, and now I got to go and wash these wheels and hope that I can resurrect them, because that's been played with a lot on a rough surface, and they're pretty damaged, and they've got rust on them. I'm going to see if the Vapor Rust dissolves the rust off of the plastic. So next day I come back and I still see the rust on the wheels, so it didn't really help much. But this looks a lot better. The launcher had rust on it, and now you see the big difference is it all looks shiny. The axles all look much better now, although they're still bent. And we take out the washers. That washer has something still on there, so I put it back and let it sit for a little while longer. So now go to the milling machine, and I clamp these things pretty gently, so you can see it moves a bit when I'm drilling, which isn't the greatest, but I don't want to damage the model when I clamp it in the vise. So I go in with my split point drill, and I take off the head of the rivets, and I'm going to replace those with 440 button head cap screws, and there's a procedure which I will show you how we put this thing back together. I had to look it up online. Other people have done this before. I'm not the first one, so use their wisdom. So I pop them off of the old rivets and take this out carefully. It's on a spring. I don't know how the spring works, so I'm kind of worried it might jump out of there. So let's see. It's wrapped around. It's a torsion spring, and it looks like it's it's peened in there, so it's not gonna fly away. So that's good news. Now it's still in the milling machine. I go in and line up my holes. And I believe this drill, I found this tap drill as a split point tap drill. And I'm able to go into these pretty directly. I'm showing it a little bit speeded up, but the castings for these 60s models are a little bit better quality than the ones from the 40s, so it's a little bit safer to drill into them, so it's turning out to be an easier job than some of the small models I've been doing. So I'm going in just by hand with my 440 Blue Wizard spiral point tap. I speed it up a little bit, but you can still see the process. It almost looks natural speed at some points. So here I put in my button head cap screws. These are the same screws I use for most of the models, and in this case they of course work perfectly. So now that'll protect those threaded holes during the rest of the process. Now that's the latch for the missile launcher platform. You can see the top part is broken off. It's been sheared right off. So I'm going to fabricate out of a chunk of aluminum a new one. So I'm marking it and cut it out on the bandsaw. And then it's going to go into the milling machine. And it's a little bit of a challenge with these tiny little parts, and to hold that thing in there in the right position with parallels underneath. And there's a whole actually stack of parallels to get it arranged so that I can clamp on this thing and have it still stick up above the top of the vise. But in the end it worked just fine. There's a new end mill I bought that uses the carbide inserts, and that's turning out to be fantastic because my usual high-speed steel end mills keep getting blunter and blunter, and this is a great solution. It does most of what I need it to do, and it doesn't get blunt very quickly. Certainly not on aluminum. So I'm squaring it off on all sides, and now I'm going to have to shape it a little bit because it needs to fit on top here and have a screw through it into the remaining part. Now you can see that piece of the casting is very much damaged, so I'm using a big punch and hammering at it, you can see here, to get it to go back into the flat position. So I'm going to mark it here. So I'm going to have a little protrusion so that it sticks up, so that it's not dragging on the bodywork when you rotate it. So I'll come in here with the milling cutter and take that down just a little bit. And that'll leave clearance for the part that's rotating. Now I'm going to have to drill a hole into that part that's protruding. I'm showing you this whole process because it's a little bit unusual to have to fabricate a part like this, and I think it's interesting to watch. So I go in with a tiny little center drill, and I'm just drilling a clearance hole for a I think it's a 256 screw that's going into this. So now I'm going to drill a hole in the top of this, and I'm going to have to cut a thread so I can attach that the top lever onto the onto the latch. And you'll see that you can see a mark on the drill where I've marked it with the Sharpie, and you can see how deep I'm going into that to make sure I have a good thread. And with the screw going way deep into it, it strengthens the whole thing, so it's less likely for anything to break on it. So now that's done, blow it off, and here I put the new part on top and tighten it down. So let's see how it works in here. Well, it seems to be pretty good. So I'm going to knock off the corner so that it gives it a little bit of the shape. It's kind of like a little radar unit on top, or it's disguised that way. So it's not going to be perfect, but at least I'll have the general shape that it was. So I think it'll look nice. So there we have it. Now here's the problem, is that the whole side, actually both sides a little bit, but this side more than the other. So I've got to straighten it out. So what I'm going to do, I've got a couple of steel parallels, and they're just lightly clamped on there. And then I put a much bigger, thicker parallel and put a massive C-clamp on it. And then by squeezing the C-clamp, it's going to bend that thing straight, and it's under control, so it's not going to get out of hand and snap it off or something. So this gives me a lot of control. So there, I tried it. Not quite enough. It still rocks a bit. So I'll just squeeze it a little bit more. And that's got it pretty darn straight. So let's have a look. It looks straight to me. So now that platform will rotate properly. So now it's time to strip the paint off of it. 3 main parts. Going outside for this. The boiling water followed by caustic soda. And that cleans the paint off pretty good. Now I'm doing something new. This is a big model, so it's a lot of brushing. So I'm using a wire brush on the drill press. I use this for restoring tools. It really takes the stuff off and makes it nice and smooth and shiny as well. And it does it very fast. So I speed it up a little bit so you're not watching the entire process, but you can see how nicely it came out. So all the parts look good now, and they'll be ready for paint. Now here's these little cracks on the corner of the top. That's where it got bent. Obviously this was extremely well played with. So I'm using a little bit of super glue and baking soda, and that kind of hardens right away, and it makes a little bit stronger fill so that it also holds it together rather than just filling the cracks. So it's on all 4 corners, and of course it's a bit of a random process, so then afterwards you have to file the excess off. So there it is, baking soda. And I've done it on the inside as well, and that'll make it nice and strong. And here I go in with the file and clean all of those up. So I've taped up the edges of those because that has to be moving on that platform. And I go in and starting with some primer. This is the Tamiya primer. I believe this is the gray primer. It's going to get metallic paint. What I'm going to be doing with this model is I'm not going to be restoring it to the original green, and I'm not going to be making it the bright blue that they had, or even the white. There are various versions. I'm going to be trying to restore this one, or to update it or upgrade it to the television version. You can't make it completely like the television version because the casting already was a compromise. It's more squared off than the one that's on TV, but at least I can get the colors and the markings correct as to the TV show. So on this one, I'm painting white on the part that's going to be orange, and I'm going to keep it orange because I think that shocking color looks kind of interesting. Now, I don't have an interior, and to get an interior would be very expensive, so I decided I'm going to make my own interior. This is a box from some chocolate chip cookies, and it has these nice interesting shapes that can look like seats. So I'm cutting out a bit of that. So there's parts here that are bent, and they have contours like seats, so you can't see that well into the thing. So I'm going to make my own version of seats, and this is just an idea I had when I saw this packaging. I thought I could probably cut out enough pieces. So there's another part that I'm going to use as the dashboard. So there, I've taped it together and it fits in there nicely. So I'm going to glue it together. I'm going to put sides on it, and I'm also going to put a center console, and it's all going to be held together with the usual, which is the epoxy. I'm not going to show you the whole process because it's a lot of little fiddly bits that I put on there, but you get the idea of how I went about doing this. So here it is, all done up with a console in the middle, and into the spray booth with a little bit of primer. I wind up changing it a little bit because it's tricky to fit in there because you really don't know what the shape is supposed to be like, and in the end I managed to get it so it fits pretty good. So here I'm using, this is a fluorescent orange paint, and it's the AK or whatever brand, and it's nice and bright fluorescent orange, so I want to use that really bright orange. I kind of like the idea that the thing opens up and it gives you a warning just by seeing the thing open that this is going to be something dangerous. It's nice using this paint because it rinses off with water. So you get to see I'm just touching it up a little bit. I of course had the recording and pause in reverse, so I didn't record any of the actual painting. That happens to me sometimes. So now it's getting metallic silver paint. My first thought was maybe, on the TV, maybe it's not so blue. But after painting this thing silver and then comparing it to the TV show, which you can watch on YouTube, I found that it's way too silver. It needs to be blue. But it's okay if it has the metallic silver underneath. It makes the metallic paint look better when it goes on top. Somehow, I guess the metallic shows right through. And here I'm doing the wheels. I've tried to clean those up a bit, make them look as good as I can. So now I'm using Vallejo paints. I'm trying different paints. And turns out these ones are really good. This is Vallejo Air Metallic Silver. So that would be just the same color we're dealing with, but I'm adding some Vallejo Metallic Blue. And I have to say that the colors from this is just gorgeous. So I get it It's hard to see that it's blue here, but in real life it sure as heck looks nice. So a little bit of thinner for the airbrush. And you can see I mixed up a lot of paint in this case. So there's a lot of surface area to cover. And so I'm showing you the speeded up version. I'm just cutting out the bulk of it. But you can see what a beautiful finish I can get from this. Of course, the wheels have to be the same color. In the TV show, it's all matching colors. Even the tracks are pretty much matching. Now for this red stripe, it's almost impossible to tape, and I don't want to tape it. I tried a little bit and I stripped up some of the paint. So I've decided to go with the brush and brush it on there. You can see I'm missing a little bit there. I came back and I fixed up all that, so I made it look pretty good for... I've watched people hand pinstripe cars, and I figured I should be able to pinstripe this model, and it came out pretty good. Now I'm using here, I don't have white ink for a clear decal, so I've cut out the decal paper. I took a piece of it and I sprayed it with the lacquer over top, and then I just cut it to these fine strips and then apply them. And this is the decal from Black Square or something. Very nice quality decals. And these decals I made up, I had to use a white decal, and then I printed the light blue because it's supposed to be a white square with a rescue and an arrow. So then I put the clear rescue markings over top of the white square. The blue looks different color depending on the angle, because that's what happens with metallic paint. Different angle, it looks like a different color. So for the back, I have an idea with these. There's these two domes on the back, and on the TV show you never saw the back of these things, so I have no idea what they look like, but I have a pretty good idea of what that should be. So I've put the chrome paint, and then here a little transparent blue on the one side, and on the other side transparent red. So these, in my imagination, are like police lights. They're two cherries, and so when they're at a scene of a UFO incident, they can have flashing lights so the drivers know that there's something going on up there. So here I've mixed up some gloss black paint with flat black to make a semi-gloss, and now it's time to put the weapons platform in place. And first step, I've got to put my latch in place, and it's nice, you can just lay it in because the spring is held on by this clip, and that clip also holds the bottom of that latch. And now before putting the other end in, you have to load this thing, and you go all the way around, and the other end is loose because it stops it from turning. So you have to do the loading of it first, and then you put that front plate on there to hold it in place. So there it is. Works perfectly. Now I've cleaned this up, and I put my little spring washer and then the flat washer on top and put it in place, and I'm using the same screw, and it goes in nicely. You got to get the tightness right so that it moves and locks in place in various positions. So I've used a spring out of a ballpoint pen, and there we go. So here's the axles, and I'm putting the dimples on the ends, so when I'm hammering them it's going to be easier. And here I'm polishing them up on the buffing wheel. So I'm just showing you one, I'm not going to go through 6 of them. Now, something that bothers me about these toys with tracks is the real tracks are heavy, and they fall down and they follow the contour of the wheels on the top as well as on the bottom. But when we stretch these ones, they stretch across straight, and it doesn't look right to me. So in order to get it to come down, see what I'm doing is I'm drilling a hole, and I'm going to make idlers. So there's going to be a shaft going through, and it's going to look like there's an idler on the top. It's mostly going to be hidden, it won't be seen, but it's going to make the tracks rest on top of the wheels, so it looks like real tracks in the way they would look. It's one of these things, it's just something that bothers me when it doesn't look right. So I've got 2 of them, one at the back and then another one by the second wheel. So I better get that wheel in there so I know where to drill the hole. And then I go all the way through on the other side as well. And I've got these brass pieces that I'm going to make look like little idler wheels. And just so I see what it looked like, I put the track back on. So here's those bits of brass. I've basically put a center hole in them, but it makes it look more like an idler wheel, and painting it blue, the same color as the wheels. So now I can put my wheels back, get the tracks on there, do the other side, and I'm going to hammer these in first. So there's 6 wheels. I'm not going to show them the usual way I do, but it's a lot of hammering to get those down. And now we move on to some detailing. We'll chrome on the headlights, and then while that's drying, I paint the indicator lights, and then white for the headlights themselves. A lot of detail in this video that I speeded up because there's so many steps. I didn't want to make the video too long. Now here's these little idlers. You can see they go right through to the other side. And now it holds the tracks so that it looks like they're weighed down and they look more natural. So there I've got my seats. I've left those the bright silver, kind of like that. And put it in place with the windshield I got from Steve Flowers. And so that's brand new, doesn't have to be anything. And then snap it into place. So here, you can't use the old screws. Well, you could, but the heads of the screws have been used many times and you can't tighten them anymore. So I'm just tapping out the holes and putting in 440 button head cap screws for the purpose. So let's remind you of where we started. This is the model with the bent up axles. Paint it's extremely well played with, well enjoyed, and it has suffered for it. So it definitely needs to be restored. So let's see what it looks like now. I think it's a beautiful toy. This was my favorite vehicle of all of the things that Gerry Anderson had done. Here it is with the top down and those cool lights on the back. I've not seen anybody what they've done on the back of their models, and maybe I start a trend. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Timo's Dinky Detailing. This was a big project, and I did it over Christmas, and took me this long to to get the thing released. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, it's free. So until next time, be seeing you.